This is kind of a foundational based training when it comes to changing your behavior. Any good habit or bad habit, quitting an addiction that you've had for a long time, any automatic behavior that you have, your brain has neural pathways set up to give you thought patterns so that you automatically do the behavior. If you want to cut that out, so if you want to quit smoking, quit drinking, quit weed, quit porn, start going to the gym, anything that kind of requires a conscious change, right? A mental change. This is the blueprint to look at to do it. So we're going to go into it now. Let's do it. Let's start from the top. Let's say you want the bananas. The bananas just represent something that you want. And let's say that the lion just represents a fear that you don't want. So this is the pain is the lion and the pleasure is the bananas, right? What this guy is going to go through right now in his brain to decide whether he wants to go for the bananas or just run away from the lion or attack the lion or whatever, right? There's a million things he could do, but there's a process that his brain goes through that we all go through with every single situation that we find ourselves in. And if you can become aware of this process, you can start to kind of change it. And this is how you change the human you are being. It's really kind of trippy stuff, but it's really deep. So I'm going to come back to the lion example in a sec after I teach you about the blueprint, and then we'll see if it makes sense or it doesn't or whatever. But first I've got to go wipe my face because I'm so hot. How do I get a fan going? You get a fan?
12 seconds later.
All right, I got a fan. This should help me concentrate.
A few minutes later.
All right, fan's broken. Let's just get on with it. So here's the blueprint that I'm actually going to teach you. It's a situation, which is just in this case the lion and the banana, and then every situation you have, you're going to have a thought about the situation, right? That's just inevitable. That's what happens every single time. And it's those thoughts that you can change. But moving forward, the thoughts are going to create, the thoughts go into your body and that creates an emotion. Now your emotion is actually the result of a very complex equation going on in your brain, which includes hundreds and hundreds of thoughts that you are not aware of. And once you've had all these hundreds of thoughts, you're going to have an emotion that's going to give you a feeling, right? That feeling is going to make you take action in a certain way, and the action is going to give you a result that's either going to give you pain or pleasure. So that's the blueprint. We call it steer, but it's spelt wrong, which just helps you remember it. It ends in ear. It has T in the middle. Now, some situations are good, and they are for you to do with what you will. Some situations are bad, and they are for you to handle how you do. But some situations are sticky situations. So a sticky situation is when you have a predetermined commitment. I'm going to quit smoking. And then you are outside with a cigarette in one hand and a lighter in the other, and you're going like this. That's a sticky situation. You're going against what you said you're going to do. So the person you want to be is a non-smoker, but the person you are being is a smoker. That creates dissonance, that creates stress. So that we call a sticky situation. Again, stupid name, you're going to remember it. Sticky situation. And the world is going to hand you situations non-stop, all the time. It never ends. It just goes on and on forever and ever, and there's nothing you can do about it. But change the thoughts that you have. So the cool thing to know about your thoughts is that you are not your thoughts, right? You have nothing to do with your thoughts. Your thoughts will go on with or without you. And if you doubt that, pause this video, sit down right now, and try to go 1 minute without a thought. 1 minute without a thought. Oh, can you hear that? It's like cicadas. Indonesia. There's never a quiet moment in Indonesia. In the morning, it's just the roosters. And it's like afternoon now, early afternoon, we get this. And then at night, you got monkeys. You can't win. So sorry if you can hear that noise. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it's a beautiful sound. So anyway, where was I? If you try to go 1 minute without having a thought, if you try to do that, you're going to kind of get distracted. The best thing you can do is to put your focus onto your breathing, because if you haven't done meditation for years, your focus has to go somewhere. You can't turn it off. So put your focus on your breathing, maybe count the breaths in and out. See if you can go 1 minute. By the time you get to like 12, 14, you're going to have some random thought that you don't even want to have. So the thoughts are not you. They're just things that have happened throughout the day. They're conditional on your situations. Your situations are what trigger your thoughts. And your thoughts are what will determine how you feel. So your thoughts are an equation, right? And I'll give you that example with the guy and the lion again in a second, because this is really trippy and much deeper than anyone thinks that it is. But it's also the key to controlling your behavior and kind of understanding why you feel the way you do and why you don't need to act upon certain feelings and why you should on others. So it's really important to learn this stuff. The world's going to constantly hand you situations, and with every situation, you're going to have thoughts about it, which are going to determine how you feel, right? Your emotions. So your thoughts cause your feelings. So people get confused about emotions and feelings are the same thing. You can use the same word. The words are interchangeable. It doesn't matter. But they're not the same thing. So feelings are felt in your body, right? Oh, my heart's pumping faster. My hands are sweaty. Knees are weak. Arms are heavy. Whatever, right? They're feelings, just sensations in your body. And then you label it, right? So maybe you got all of those feelings together, and then you might say, oh, I'm nervous, or I'm anxious, or I'm scared, or I'm excited. You put the emotion includes the context. So if you're a rock star and you're going out on stage before a show and there's 10,000 people cheering, you might have all those feelings in your body, but you might call it excited, or, I'm ready, or whatever, right? Or nervous. You might be nervous. The nervous has a negative connotation. The excitement has a positive connotation. So if you want to self-talk yourself into positivity, you might call those feelings excitement. Or if you're really bad at your job, you might call it scared. I'm scared. You know what I mean? It's kind of just a labeling situation. But anyway, that's a whole nother lesson. Now, good and bad emotions. This is kind of where we get a little bit trippy, and a lot of breakthroughs happen when we get to this part of the lesson. By the way, this is the backbone of all my training. So if someone comes to me for coaching, this is in the back of my head when we're talking. And this is usually the part that gets the most results. Is, let's say in life you have half bad and half good, right? That's just how it is subjectively. So if you were constantly to live at the bottom, right? If you're homeless, you have no shoes, you have nothing, no money, no warmth, you're outside, you have no shelter, right? Things are bad. But you begin to get a tolerance to that pain. And then when something good happens, you get a huge hit of dopamine or serotonin, adrenaline, a much bigger dose than someone that's used to those type of things. So this is where it's subjective. Whereas, let's say you're a rich kid playing Xbox all day, you've got food, you've got money, you've got shelter, you've got everything, and then suddenly they take your Xbox away. So now you're angry and you're really upset, but you've still got food, shelter, you've got all the other things, but you're angry with your situation because of the context. So the point is, good and bad things are completely subjective, 100% subjective. They're not true. And although everybody's constantly trying to have a good feeling all the time, you can't. And you need the bad to be able to appreciate the good. So when bad times come, it's a good thing, as long as you run with it. If your partner breaks up with you or your pet dies, and you're crying and you're sad, it's probably exactly what you should be doing. You don't want to be somebody that their pet dies and you're laughing or you're happy about it. That's just weird. You want to be appropriate. You don't always want to be happy. You want to be appropriate to the situation. And if you are, you could have a bad day and you go, well, I'm just having a bad day. You don't beat yourself up for it. You don't identify with it. It's just a bad day. And then the next day, everything's better again. After every dark night, there's a beautiful day the next day. Anyway, your emotions will decide your actions. Now, your actions are a direct result of your emotions and nothing else. So the thoughts create the emotion creates the action. How do you change the action? You change the emotion. How do you change the emotion? You change the thoughts. How do you change the thoughts? Well, you can't change the situation. You just become present and change the thoughts. Your actions will always cause a result. Now, here's what happens if you are unconsciously going about your day for 10 years. You're going to start developing habits and addictions and things like this, right? Weeds grow automatically. So here's the full blueprint: situation, thought, emotion, action, result. That's how it works. That's the whole thing. So I'm going to constantly refer back to this in future trainings with Evolve Already, or in the email trainings I give. I always talk about the blueprint. This is the blueprint, because you need to identify what these things are, and then you need to learn to steer them and change them. After every action you do, you're going to get a result. Your result is either a reward or a punishment. And after you do something, let's say a situation happens. So let's just give you an example, solid example. Let's say a situation happens. You argue with your partner. So you suddenly have thoughts about that. Unchecked, those thoughts might be things like, she shouldn't talk to me like that. Or, he shouldn't be so angry. You know, he shouldn't, should. People should all over themselves and each other. So that creates negative thoughts. The thoughts create emotion. Let's call it anger, right? It's really just an increased heartbeat and a pit stomach and all of the feelings, right? Sensations in your body. That's all it is. But you've done that to yourself. You can't blame your partner. They're in the outside world. Even if it's their fault, you don't need to get angry. You can control that. And if your partner's yelling at you and you don't yell back and you let them yell themselves out and then you agree with them and say, I'm sorry, you're right. You've diffused the entire situation because you controlled the thoughts. Right? Controlling your thoughts is how you control this whole thing. That's how you steer the ship. And once you can steer your own life, you can start to steer other people's lives too and help people. So you're now more likely to do rewarded actions, and it works in reverse too. Let's say you get up, do public speaking when you're 20 years old, I don't know, you're young, and it goes really badly, right? Really badly. You may develop a fear of public speaking to the point that you never, ever, ever do it again. You are more likely to do rewarded actions. You are less likely to do punished actions. So when you have this whole thing put together, the only thing you can really focus on is T. We call it T, T-E-A. That's what it spells, right? Thoughts, emotions, and actions. They're the only things that you have any control over. The situation, you have no control over. If there is a global pandemic, you have no control over that. But you can control how you react to it. Let's talk about the lion again, because this is where stuff gets trippy, man. And I want to just give you an example to give you an idea of how many thoughts a human can have in a second. He shouldn't drink coffee while he's doing a video. That would be a thought. Any modern man would probably just run in this situation. Lions are to be feared. We know that in our bones. We know that genetically through everything our ancestors witnessed, went through, and was eaten by. We know this, right? So you would immediately run away. But there's a lot more to it than that. That's just coming from our perspective of someone living in modern times that can buy bananas for $4 down at the shops, you know. So let's look at the actions this guy could take. He could run away. He could run at the bananas to try and get one. He could attack the lion. That probably wouldn't go well. He could attack bananas. That's crazy, but it could happen. He could scream at the lion. Maybe, who knows? He could go and get more people. There's showing a bit of thought. He could scream at the people, right? That's what crazy person might do. And crazy people just have a different thought pattern, so it's all the same thing. It's, you know, this explains everything from crazy people to addictions to wildly successful people to everything to yourself, right? That's why this is so powerful. He could sneak away, or he could try and ninja his way to the banana, blah, 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 right? But what's going to determine what he does is the hundreds of thoughts that happen in a split second that decide his emotion. Right, so I'm going to give you an example for this because this will help you with like addictions, cravings that you get for a cigarette or weed or alcohol or whatever you want to stop doing, right? Heroin, I don't care if it's physically addictive or anything, you've got to overcome it with your brain anyway. So this applies across the board to any behavior that you have. Here are some of the considerations you would have, thoughts that you would have in your brain consciously or unconsciously, and most of them by far are unconscious. Can the man see the lion? Can the lion see the man? So when he's looking at the lion, he will take note. Can the lion see me? That's a factor in his situation. Does the man know what a lion is capable of? If he's witnessed his friend being eaten by a lion, he's going to have trauma from it, which is, trauma is just an emotion you carry with you through time, which helps you because when you hit a situation like this, you see the lion, you don't have to waste one more second to go through the rest of these thoughts. You just spring into action in that moment. Before you're conscious, you're already running. That's what fight or flight is. So as soon as he goes through these thoughts, can the man see the lion? I can see the lion. Can the lion see me? All right, he cannot see me. That's cool. Does the man know what a lion is capable of? Holy crap, he ate my friend John. John's dead. There's no more thoughts. You just run. That's why trauma can be helpful. In modern times, it's usually not helpful and it's more of a hindrance. But
This is why it evolved, right? This is why we evolved the way we did. Does the lion know what the man is capable of? Is the man big or small? Is the lion big or small? The size of it might matter, right? If that's a little tiny lion, who cares if he's there? Just go kick him out of the way and eat the bananas. But even more thoughts, does the little lion have parents? And it just goes off on that tangent, right? So that's why thought patterns just go breaking into different ways all the time, because it depends on this. This thought depends on that. That thought depends on this, blah, blah, blah. Is the man alone? That's a factor. Is the lion alone? That's a factor. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. This thing goes forever. It's not even funny. Is the man healthy? Is the lion healthy? Is the man hungry? Is the lion hungry? Is the man injured? Is the lion injured? Does the man have a family he needs to feed? Is the lion close to the tree? How close? Are the bananas green, yellow, or black? Are the bananas high in the tree or low and reachable? Does this man even like bananas? So many factors go into making that decision. And the same thing happens with you when you hit a situation where you argue with your partner, right? So many of these thoughts happen without you knowing. You're not there for them. But perhaps it turns into blame, or it turns into guilt, or it turns into whatever. And you've learned to deal with that feeling, that specific sensation. So let's say it's 3 together. Palms are sweaty, heart beating faster, feeling in the gut. Those 3 together, I call that guilt. Now, what do I do when I'm guilty? Well, I've smoked a cigarette in the past. So you automatically, through trauma, go and have the cigarette. You don't think about it. You don't go, should I have a cigarette or not? No. This is a flight or fight response in a very mild way, enough to make you do it. But you can overcome it by changing the thoughts. And that's what half the training we talk about is, to change the thoughts that you tell yourself on a constant basis. Now, every result is either going to be positive or negative. Now, the best thing that can happen is you succeed. So let's say the thing he chose to do was to ninja to the bananas, right? He tried to kind of weave his way to the bananas, and he made it, and then he got the bananas, and then he snuck away, and no lion saw him. That is a success, right? And then the second best thing that can happen is a failure. This is a bad example because in modern times we don't have lions to deal with that we need to sneak bananas past. We just have attempts at a goal of something, right? Maybe you want to build a business and then it fails. Well, that's the second best thing that can happen because you learn from it. As long as you survive the situation, failure is the second best thing that can happen to you. The second worst thing that can happen to you is you procrastinate because you're wasting time. Time's your most valuable asset. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. You don't learn anything, you waste time, nothing got achieved, nothing, right? Nothing is the worst thing you can do. Now, like I told you, I'm going to refer back to this many, many times in the future with future trainings with specific stuff like quitting weed in particular, quitting cigarettes in particular, quitting alcohol in particular, entrepreneurship, making money, online business, starting new habits, waking up productive, all of this kind of stuff. But the big lesson now to know is autonomy, right? You have an automated system in your body. And if you keep doing the same thing, you argue with your partner, you feel guilt, you smoke cigarette, you do that repeatedly, eventually your body's going to stop asking your brain. Just like the dude that ran away from the lion when he had that thought that reminded him of his friend getting eaten by a lion. No more thoughts. It's no more conscious. Consciousness has been taken off the table. Albert is retired. Now it's all about Rex. Rex takes over. That's what he's there for. So he's going to, boom, that's it. Smoke the cigarette. I don't care what Albert says. Albert's not in charge. Right? Let's become awake when you hit a sticky situation. So let's say you come home from work. Your girlfriend starts yelling at you about something you don't think is important. So suddenly you have a thought about, why is she just so I'm already tired and she's yelling at me. She's not even helping me. And now she's still putting more pressure onto me. And I didn't even do whatever she's talking about. I don't even know what she's talking about. This chick shouldn't be angry. She shouldn't be this way, right? You're blaming reality outside of yourself, right? And whenever you blame reality, you always lose. Reality always has the last laugh. Reality always is the way that it is. And the way that we know that is because it is the way that it is. So let's say that happened and then you feel a feeling, maybe it's guilt, maybe it's anger, I don't care what it is, I don't care what you label it, but it's the sensations in the body that are going to make you do what you do. So then you go outside and you have a cigarette. You pull up the cigarette, you pull up the lighter, boom, sticky situation. That's a sticky situation. So the first thing and only thing you need to learn in this lesson so far is to become awake when you hit a sticky situation. That is the most important thing that you can do. If you only learn one lesson in this whole training, this is it. The second thing you need to do is break neural pathways at least 100 times. So if you were to be given this opportunity where your girlfriend's yelling at you, you're out the back about to have a cigarette, you've recognized you're in a sticky situation, and then you decide to become present, what you next need to know is that you need to break neural pathways at least 100 times before the craving disappears. You need to break the steer blueprint, right? You need to break it. You need to make the thoughts different so that you don't get the emotion and you don't act upon the emotion. The only way to do this is to do it repeatedly. So the best example for this is conditioning. So you'll know this from Pavlov's dog's experiment. So what he did, if you don't know, I can tell you in 10 seconds. So what he started doing was feeding the dogs and ringing a bell at the same time. Pretty soon, the dog associates the bell with the food. Now what you can do is take the food away completely, ring the bell, and the dog will still salivate. You are the same as the dog and the bell, but the bell is the situation. So let's say you come home from work, you're tired, girlfriend yells at you straight away. That's the bell. The situation is the bell. Here's the situation. You're going to have specific thoughts about that. So for the dog, the thought would be food's coming. And then the emotion creates a physiological response, which would be to salivate. For you, you have the situation is the girlfriend yells at you. You have a thought, she shouldn't do that to me. You feel anger. And then to deal with anger, you've learned to have a cigarette because you believe it calms your anxiety or anger or emotion or whatever. It relieves the emotion. That's what you believe. That's classic conditioning, and you've done it to yourself. How many times have you drunk alcohol in those situations? That's the conditioning. How many times you had a cigarette in your life? That's the conditioning. You've done this to yourself. So to quit an addiction is to unlearn the conditioning that you've already done to yourself. So the second lesson is to break the neural pathway at least 100 times. If you ring the bell in the beginning to a conditioned dog, he will still salivate. And you do it again, he will still salivate. But by the 100th time you ring the bell without feeding them, they're not going to salivate anymore. It breaks the conditioning. So it's the same thing you need to do. You just need to not have the reward. And the third lesson is that cravings have no power unless you resist them. So instead of resisting the feeling that you have, and it tells you, oh, you got a feeling in your throat or your heart or your gut, and you want to go have a cigarette, instead of having the cigarette, just sit there and be with it. What is it? Chill. Chill with it. What is it? And the craving will last a few minutes. That's it. If you can resist the craving about 100 times, and you can set this as a goal, you can get a little app on your phone and count out the times. Count to 100. How many times do you resist it? You can do that. And if you do it enough times, the craving will disappear. And suddenly, you're a non-drinker. You're a non-smoker. You don't take drugs. Because you get it. You know why people do. And then when you see people smoke, you know why they smoke. And you start to see the whole world a little bit differently. Anyway, that's the blueprint. I hope that helps someone out there. This is really powerful information. All of my training is based on this because it works. This is just the introduction to it. If you want to hear more training from me that refers to this stuff in specific situations that you might be going through, subscribe to my emails. tristanweatherburn.com is where you go to do that. There's a link in the description below, and I will talk to you guys again next time. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.